Well, hello there, and welcome to this episode of the Terri Show. This is going to be all about a therapist's guide to communicating during conflict. Because a lot of times you could be like a decent communicator when there's not a problem. Like if you're telling a story, if you're talking about what happened. For many people, the moment you get into conflict, you can be activated. Your nervous system gets hijacked, and your ability to communicate effectively can be compromised. And in what we're dealing with in the world right now, I think that there's a lot of people who need to learn how to communicate during conflict better because you guys have been emailing me and asking me for a guide. So consider this me hearing you and creating something for you. So before we get into it, I want to say, well, hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, please make sure that you subscribe, hit the bell, so that you get notified every time I roll out new stuff, which is every Tuesday and every Thursday. Thank you for all your questions. You know I love them. All right, now let's walk it on into today's content on how to communicate when you're in conflict. So communication is a skill at any time, right? Being able to communicate effectively and say what you mean succinctly and accurately is a skill that most of the time people don't teach us how to do. But when we're in conflict, this can be one of the most challenging parts of any relationship is how do we say what we need to say without having it blow up into something we don't want it to do. And you have to understand that we get activated, our nervous systems get activated during conflict. And so it's normal that it's different when you're trying to communicate when you're not activated, and it's easy to. It makes sense that when you're activated, it would be more challenging, right? That's just physical stuff. That's just biology. So when you yourself understand how your body responds to stress, it gives you a chance to learn how to communicate more effectively. But we have to be dialed into, like, how do I respond when I'm in conflict, right? Some people shut down, right? We go into fight, flight, freeze, fawn often. So what does that look like for you? So I want you to really think about when you're in conflict, who are you? I'm going to sort of basically talk about the top challenges when we're in conflict. What are the behaviors that I see as a psychotherapist for the past almost 30 years? But I want you to start dialing in, and I'm going to give you a guide at the end, terricole.com/guide. So you'll have all of this information in one spot. Often, when we're activated or we're in conflict, we are listening to respond as opposed to listening to understand. So if you ever notice yourself sort of mentally rehearsing like what you're going to say next, trying to prove a point, focusing on winning, this is a pattern that's worth examining for you, right? Because when we listen this way, we're not actually listening, right? We're not present. We are almost looking for holes in their argument, like we're gathering evidence and intel to make the other person wrong. So what can you do instead? Well, you can actually intentionally listen to understand, right? You're not listening with the desire to correct them. Really work to stay curious instead of defensive. And again, all the things I'm going to give you in today's episode, I'm not saying they may be simple, but I ain't saying they're easy because they can still be challenging. But I want you to, on a regular basis, create sort of low stakes check-ins to normalize problem solving before issues escalate. This is why I always tell couples that they should do a State of the Union meeting. It could be a breakfast meeting every other week. My husband and I do it on Sundays in bed while we're drinking coffee and reading the New York Times, where you're checking in regularly, like, how are we doing? When we normalize the act of inviting the other person to tell us where we could have done something better, and both people feeling the freedom to do that, it really helps us not get into conflict as much. So I'm also giving you scripts for every scenario. So, and these will be in the guide. But this could be, if it's hard for you to talk when you get activated, this is a good script for you. I have something important I'd like to share. Would you be willing to let me finish my thoughts before you respond? I promise to offer you the same space so we can both feel understood. Like if you're asking your partner not to interrupt you, not to like one-up you, not to tell you it wasn't on Wednesday, it was on Tuesday. You ever have that experience? Also, if the other person is talking, you can help them say more and feel comfortable by having these open-ended questions like, is there more you want to say about that? Or how did you feel about that? Or what do you think would help here, right? There's two ways. One is asking for what we need, asking for the space that we need. And the other is to give that space when it's our partner's turn to share. And the more generous you can be there, the easier it'll be for your partner to be generous as well. So listen, like any skill, deep listening gets easier with practice, but we have to practice. We actually have to want to do it. Second biggest communication problem that I see is when someone is using silence or stonewalling. So this is to convey displeasure, right? Shutting down entirely during conflict. This is a damaging form of passive-aggressive behavior. And listen, a lot of times it's a nervous system reaction. So it can not even be intentional, right? If we shut down. Because think about it. When we are activated, what are we doing? Usually it's either big, we're getting loud, there's something big happening, or for some people, if that wasn't okay to do in your childhood home, you may shut down completely. So stonewalling, what does that look like? It looks like becoming unresponsive, physically turning away, or leaving an interaction altogether. And so if you shut down when you're flooded, right, not because you're trying to punish the other person, the impact to the other person can still be painful, but I think that understanding that can help for us to have a healthier repair when that happens. So what you can do in the moment is name what's happening instead of disappearing. And I like to do this. If I feel like shutting down, if I can catch myself, I'll say, I feel like ignoring you right now because I'm so mad, but I want to resolve this more than that. But I do need about 30 minutes. So can I just have 30 minutes to myself and then we'll come back to this, or we can come back when you want to come back, right? So if we can call out what's happening, you're not acting it out, you're talking it out, or at least you're letting the other person know what's happening for you. You can ask for space. And what does it look like? I'm feeling overwhelmed and my instinct is to shut down, as I said, but I don't want to ignore you or avoid this. So can we take an hour, 30 minutes to cool off and then come back to this conversation? I care about us and I want to work it through. That makes it so much better than just shutting down, if you can. And listen, again, what I'm talking about in today's episode, these are all skills. And these are things that you can absolutely learn. If it's hard for you, right? Another thing that I see all the time in my therapy practice is my clients who have difficulty expressing their needs, saying what they want. If you struggle, instead of saying it during conflict, instead of saying what you need, your mind might go blank, right? Leaving you feeling stuck. It's so frustrating when that happens. A lot of times, again, this is the nervous system being overwhelmed. So what can you do? Well, first, I would love for you to notice what's happening in your body. Is your breathing, has it gone shallow? Is your chest tight? Like, are you feeling frozen, right? These are all signals to slow down. So I want you to get clear with yourself before engaging with the other person, right? We're slowing down. Slow down the breathing. And journaling can be especially helpful here, right? Writing things out will give your thoughts a structure and reduces the pressure in the moment. So I would always say to my clients, you can write it down ahead of time, right? So the script could sound like this. I've written down what I want to share with you because asking for what I need is challenging for me. Would you be willing to let me finish before responding? Your patience and compassion really help, right? So when I first would suggest this to clients, sometimes they'd be like, that's so weird. I'm going to be sitting there like reading from my journal. I'm like, yeah, because however you got to do it, you got to do it. Better to be reading from your journal the truth about how you feel, what you're trying to say to them, what you want them to understand about you, than to be there and be frozen and not be able to do it. So part of this episode today is about getting outside of your comfort zone and doing something that is perhaps different. But I promise you, these ideas that I have for you in this episode will give you a better outcome when you are in conflict, if you want to communicate effectively. The next thing that I see often in my therapy practice is defensiveness and blame. So this shows up when we feel threatened or we feel judged. We may justify our behavior. We may blame the other person. We may feel victimized, or they may be doing it to us, right? This is frequently rooted in unresolved shame or past experiences of criticism. So what can you do? So the work here for you is understanding your own reaction and resisting the urge to use blame or shame as protection or as a way to sort of win that argument in that moment. So I'm going to give you a couple of guidelines of how to do this and not do this. One thing that is very tempting to do, but I'm going to ask you to not do it, is kitchen sinking it, as we call it, where you're talking about more than one issue, right? And they're like, and you also do this. And last summer you did this. And last Wednesday you did that. So we're not doing that because nobody is open to hearing everything in the world that's wrong with them that you think that you're saving up to tell them in an argument. Nobody wants that. So you're going to stick to one issue at a time. Bringing up everything at once just overwhelms the conversation. And I promise you, it's too much to lead to any resolution. Another thing that's helpful is use I statements. And you may be like, oh, Terri, that is so basic. Yeah, but do you do it, my friend? It might feel basic, but if you don't do it, it bears repeating. I want you to share your experience with the person that you're talking to without attacking them. Focus on impact, right? Rather than their character defects according to you. We don't want to do that because people are not listening. The moment you start to attack, the moment someone becomes defensive, don't you feel like just turning off? I do. I try so hard. Like, I was so defensive, and I'm still defensive. I work so hard still. After being a therapist for almost 30 years, I still want to defend why I did what I did. And I work so hard not to because nobody cares. Like, it doesn't help. It required me to be misunderstood sometimes. And I think that sometimes it's okay. Sometimes people will think the wrong thing about you, and it's okay. I want you to really notice your contribution, right? Pause, breathe, and reflect on your 50% of that dynamic, right? Because when we're in conflict, right, we're often choosing between being loving and being right, quote unquote. And from a therapeutic perspective, those goals rarely coexist in the same moment. So I love the idea of normalizing being wrong. My husband and I do this all the time, just naturally, because we figured it out being together almost 30 years. Like, you figure it out. Like, we love each other. We both stand for the marriage. When one person is cracking up, the other person cannot start losing their mind too, right? We just have these spoken and unspoken rules about how we will deal with conflict. But it's really important to be wrong and allow yourself to be wrong. It actually is so liberating to not feel the need to be right all the time or to win in these petty ways. I go out of my way to let Vic know if I was insisting, because I am bossy by nature, I am. So I'm wrong a lot, and I have to go back and go, oh my God, you know what? I thought it was this, and you were right. And he'll do the same for me because there's trust. I won't abuse it, and neither will he. But what happens is we don't become polarized on issues as easily because we both can admit when we're wrong and just be sorry. And nobody holds the other person hostage, or we don't throw it back up in each other's face, which I think is very important as well. Let's talk a little bit about the importance of repair, because even with the best intentions, right, conflict conversations, they don't always go the way we want them to go. But what matters most is that we come back together, we acknowledge the impact, we take responsibility, we reconnect, right? Repair scripts, right, that you can borrow. And I have them, don't worry, they're in the guide, terricole.com/guide. I've been thinking about our conversation, and I see where I contributed to the tension. Okay. Or that didn't come out the way that I meant it to. Can I try again? Sometimes I'll be like, wait, time out. Can I just back that up? Especially if I used a tone of voice that was like really bitchy and not necessary. I care about us more than being right, and I want to understand your experience. Repair builds trust. Avoidance erodes trust. That's just a fact. There's something so liberating being in a union with someone where you can just say, you know what, I just acted like a fucking jerk before and I'm really sorry. Just that. And, my husband is the worst because he'll always make an excuse for me. Oh, you're exhausted, Terri. You just finished writing a book. I'm like, dude, stop making excuses for my shit behavior. If I act like a jerk and I own it, please just accept my apology. Like now he does. But years ago, he would always be like, you don't owe me an apology. I'm like, I do. Would you stop rewarding bad behavior, please? Anyway, in the guide, I'm also giving you a bunch of sentence starters that are very easy if it's hard for you to set boundaries or to set a limit with someone. I'd like to make a simple request. I wanted to bring something to your attention. I want to revisit what happened yesterday. Because here's the thing. We can learn how to speak up. We can learn how to assert ourselves, even in conflict. Because none of us want to live in the purgatory of being misunderstood, right? For me, it is so important, probably connected to my HFC-ness, probably connected to my father wound, but being understood and understanding other people is so important to me because I had a father who was basically a mute, and so you had no idea if he ever understood anything you said to him, and he didn't say much, so I feel like I need to talk so much, partly because of that. I'm also I wanted to make sure that you guys know about my HFC course. So getting into recovery from being a high-functioning codependent is starting very soon. There's links that will be in the guide as well for you to do that. But we're going to be covering all kinds of boundaries and boundary scripts as well. But for high-functioning codependents, repairing after conflict can be very difficult because we don't even want to admit that there is conflict, or we think it's the other person's responsibility to do it. So make sure that you get the guide, terricole.com/guide. And if you are interested in spending the next 8 weeks with me, I would love to see you in the HFC course. I hope that this added value to your life that is going to help you be better communicators when you are in conflict. I hope you have the most amazing week. And as always, take care of you.